As many of you are aware, Elon Musk bought Twitter for 44 billion, I almost said million, $44 billion. And after months of legal battles, he finally took over in October and wasted absolutely no time making his mark, firing about half of the workforce. Reportedly, he targeted people who criticized him and even allegedly told a janitor that his job would be replaced by robots. At one point, he'd fired so many people that he realized he actually needed some of them and asked them to come back. And then let's talk about the hate speech. After taking over, he reinstated many accounts that were removed for hate speech, including that of a certain former president that caused the attack on the Capitol. And since taking over, the New York Times reports slurs against black people have nearly tripled, against gay men nearly double, and anti-Semitic posts a 60% increase. And on top of that, they're not being monitored or removed since he fired most of the team that does that. The only notable exception he's made was a personal temporary suspension of Kanye West, aka Ye, after he tweeted a swastika. Well, today we have a special guest, Melissa Ingle, a transgender woman who was a senior data scientist at Twitter and one of those fired by Elon Musk. In this week's Spotlight, she's going to share with us what she experienced there at Twitter. Hey, Melissa, welcome to our podcast.
Look at that beautiful dog.
Oh, look at the baby, the doggy.
Very nice picture. Very nice picture of the two of you. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. All right, before we get started, we have to ask you the question we ask all of our guests. What can you tell us about yourself that we cannot Google about you?
Absolutely. So in my current life, I'm a data scientist. In a previous life, for about 20 years, I live in San Francisco. And for about 20 years in the Bay Area, I was heavily involved in the local theater scene.
Nice.
I acted in plays and I sang in musicals. And I even formed a theater company with my two friends. And we produced 4 plays. And it used to be such a huge part of my life. And sometimes it still seems surreal that I don't do it anymore. But yeah.
Oh, well, that's wonderful. So theater. All right. So you're gonna do some acting with Gianni Storm. You can you guys can do some acting together someday.
Collaboration. Very quickly, what's your dog's name?
This is Biscuit.
Hi, Biscuit.
Biscuit, I like it.
Buttermilk Biscuit. Hi, Biscuit.
Okay. So Melissa, so you were a data scientist at Twitter. Tell us a little bit about your job, and then also tell us what happened April 14th after you found out Elon Musk was going to buy Twitter. You know, what was going through your mind? Were you excited? Were you hopeful? Were you scared? Were you angry? What were you feeling?
Kind of all of the above. So I worked in content moderation. So specifically, I worked in political misinformation. And really, our job was to keep the Twitter platform healthy. We worked under Twitter Health. We wanted to keep it free of misinformation. Other people worked on abuse, harassment, more boring things like copyright infringement that are still really important, maybe not as sexy as political misinformation, but really important for our platform's health. So I'm a data scientist. I wrote and monitored machine learning algorithms that searched the Twitter for political misinformation, and then we ranked them highly enough. And if they had misinformation, we would take them down.
Okay.
When Mr. Musk first proposed buying Twitter back in April, we felt like we had a target on our backs.
Oh, immediately.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
He immediately started by saying that he didn't like content moderation. He wanted the platform to be, quote, free speech.
Mm-hmm.
But for those of us working in the trenches in content moderation, we knew that that's not a viable way to run a social media platform. And it's not even just a gut instinct or something I believe in my heart. We have plenty of data on this. If you look at social media platforms that don't have content moderation, they have names like Gab or 4chan or 8chan or 8kun, and they are toxic environments that people don't want to be on. You don't want to be on a platform where you're barraged with racism, where only we are barraged with homophobia, where only the most extreme viewpoints survive. So it was difficult to say, what is Mr. Musk saying? What does he really believe versus what is he saying? Because he has this sort of blustery public persona that is sometimes at odds with what he's actually doing.
Yeah, it's not clear. So you were part of that team that got fired for, like you said, the content moderation. So that's what you were doing. So what do you think about where it is now, out of curiosity?
Yeah, it's really bad. I mean, nobody. I mean, the reason we worked there is because we all believed in the platform. You know, the tech industry, we're quite idealistic at times. We really think we can make the world better with our technology, and we all really believed in Twitter. I've been a Twitter user for a really long time, and it's really sad to see where it's going. As you alluded to in the introduction, hate speech is up against all groups, people of color, LGBTQ people. He recently, just today, Mr. Musk tweeted out an insult insinuating that the former head of trust and safety, Yoel Roth, who's an openly gay man, was a groomer. And it's really, really.
Can you explain what that means, a groomer?
Absolutely. Yeah. So this is somebody who is supposedly using a child, preparing a child to be sexually exploited later on. And it's a real process, but it's also something that is now being applied across the board to any LGBTQ person who interacts with children. And it's led to some really dangerous rhetoric. We see recent violence at drag shows, protests outside of just anti-LGBTQ protests in general. The New York Times reported that there was a 12 times increase in anti-LGBTQ protests between 2020 to 2022. It's a dangerous environment, and he seems to be using this to fuel engagement at his Twitter.
Wow, that's crazy.
Did you ever get to meet him, Melissa?
I didn't, although one of my colleagues did, and told him off and was escorted out of the building. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's good for them.
I was a very junior employee. I just ran code. I had to know my math. I had to know my algorithms, but I wasn't really responsible for making the decisions. And I understand why people who are more senior are reluctant to speak out. But you know, I think the word needs to get out there.
All right. So several months later, October 27th, he officially takes over. What did you experience?
Yeah, for sure. So when he took over, he sent out an email to all the full-time employees on Thursday, and it said, tomorrow you're going to get an email in your inbox, and it's going to have your fate at Twitter. And if you're fired, it'll be to your personal email. It is horrible. It's awful. You can imagine the effect that would have on morale, right?
Yeah, immediately. Even if you did stay.
Yeah. And so I was a contractor, and if you don't mind, I'd like to say what contract work is in the tech industry, because since leaving, I've spoken to people who experience it a little bit differently. I had a Twitter email address. I was on Twitter Slack channels. I have code that's still running on the site, as far as I know. So in the tech industry, contractors work 40 or more hours a week, although we only paid for 40. The whole thing treated us as regular employees. We go to meetings. So we just don't get health care and we don't get benefits, right?
Right. Of
That's
course.
what that's about.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't given that email that said your fate is going to be tomorrow.
Right. So you didn't get that. Okay, gotcha.
The regular full-time employees were supposed to be fired the next morning. But at about 11 p.m. local time, people were starting to report they're getting kicked off the system. So people in New York City, people at 11 p.m., I'm kicked off, I'm locked off. Sometimes when they're in the middle of running code.
Wow.
And then you saw it hit Chicago. And then you saw it hit, in the mountain time zone. And it was like this tidal wave coming across the United States. I'm on the West Coast. And you were like, am I going to be hit by this? Or am I going to be on high enough ground, so to speak?
Yeah.
And my boss was laid off in that round.
Okay.
The head of the department quit soon after because she was disgusted with how people were treated.
Of course.
And I was in this limbo. I didn't have a new assignment, and I didn't have a boss.
Wow.
But keep in mind, this is the week of the U.S. midterms, and I work in political misinformation.
Oh wow.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
wow.
That is crazy.
Wow.
And it was just extremely disorganized, and nobody knew what to do. Should I put in the 12 hours of work to keep this platform safe, or do I just put my head under my covers and sleep? You don't know what to do. And so that happened, that passed. I deal with stress by working through it. So I worked long hours, uncertain about my future. And that Saturday, the Saturday after the elections, I got a text on my phone that said, one or more of your access tokens has been removed. And I left on
so nobody even told you. They just started.
Nobody told me.
Oh
Nobody told me.
wow. So
Horrible.
yeah.
Poor
So,
form.
got some comments online real quick. Kevin Thaxton, free speech is only for freedom from government action reprisal. If I'm willing to face the consequence of my reaction, the speaker that speaks against me will receive a reaction. Jacqueline Robson, the place is a cesspool of vileness now. Musk is a despicable, toxic, malignant narcissist whose big mouth wrote a check his ass can't cash. Advertisers are steadily leaving, and his Tesla stock is way down. Now he wants users to pay for his piss poor fiscal decisions. Daria Winter, what happened with employee rights and protections? Were there none? What has happened to advertisers? Have any pulled out from support of the platform? Are you aware of any, Melissa?
Yes. So back in before he actually completed the purchase of the company, so this was in May and June, Twitter typically holds what they call their upfronts, like their TV upfronts, where they can purchase their ad sales for the entire year. Usually responsible for about 15% of their total ad revenue sales. And you may or may not know, about 90% of Twitter revenue is from advertisers, right? That's how we make our money.
Mm-hmm.
So Musk has tweeted out that because of quote unquote activists, LGBTQ activists, revenue is way down. What happened is activists attended this, and because of his previous statements on LGBTQ issues, they said, hey, could you just answer some basic questions about protections that you can offer when your purchase goes through? When you're in charge, are you going to continue to protect people? Right. And he refused to answer them. And so advertisers refused to buy.
Yep.
Since then, advertisers have also begun leaving.
Good.
Because you don't want your ad placed right underneath one that's snoring somebody.
Right.
Exactly.
Hate speech.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Were there any questions on the panel?
I was gonna ask.
Go ahead, Gianni. Go, Gianni. Yeah.
I was gonna ask, in your opinion or your assessment, what do you think will happen with Twitter, and also with you? What's next with you?
It's a really interesting question, right? Because he's floated a lot of ideas. His leadership has been quite chaotic. He said, he's going to make it a video site. So he wants to bring videos. That's where social media, it's been tried before, right? That's sort of the TikTokification of Twitter. He wants to make it, everybody wants to be TikTok now. You can see it on Instagram.
Of course.
And
everybody's trying.
YouTube. They're all trying to be that, right? Okay, but that's not what makes Twitter what it is. It's the smallest platform by far, about 1/10 of the size of these other platforms. And I think what every journalist and every politician in the world seems to be on it, right? So it has this outsized influence. And so one way is to go this sort of TikTokification, which I think drains it of what makes it essential. Another way would be the professionalization of it, the sort of LinkedInification of it. You can already see this sometimes, the CEOs tweeting out, here's my 7 steps to productivity. You start to see these come up.
Yeah.
Ultimately, this may be the death knell. We've seen this to several social media sites, to MySpace, to Tumblr, to Snapchat, where another service has taken what they've done and been able to copy it more successfully, and they've never been able to recover. And this might suggest that it's going to go back to the early 2000s when we had all these little sites like Dig and Tumblr and all these sites that you could post to, but there wasn't a central repository.
Yep.
But
Right.
I swear I'll finish thing. But one thing I will say is that people don't want to be on these sites if I've had so much harassment, and you can just see it. You don't want to be on a site where you're constantly subjected to this abuse.
Yep.
And advertisers don't want to be advertised on that site. So something has to be done. Yeah.
Lizzie, you had something?
In your estimation, how long do you think Elon Musk is going to stick around though with this? How long do you think he's going to be invested in this?
Yeah, this is something he said right at the top. I don't plan to be in day-to-day leadership forever. I plan to step back. What he's doing right now, you may or may not be aware, he's releasing these quote-unquote Twitter files, which are internal communications that top executives had. He's released ones about the suppression of the Hunter Biden laptop story, the suppression of the kicking off Donald Trump after Jan 6, and then supposed shadow banning. And I think you can quibble about, was it correct for Twitter to suppress the laptop story? Was it correct for Twitter to kick off Donald Trump? Or is what we're actually doing shadow banning? We said it wasn't. They say it is. But you can't say that this was hidden. This was all very, very public. We talked about this for years. Yoel Roth, Jack Dorsey have been very public about how they agonized about these decisions. Jack Dorsey has said he thinks kicking off Trump was wrong. I have very strong feelings in the opposite direction about that. I think
I was going to ask. I was actually going to ask. What were your thoughts? Yeah. Robbie, did you have something?
Actually, I just wanted to reflect on one of Daria Winter's comments when she's saying what happened to employee rights and protections. A big shift over the last few decades is that the responsibility is to the shareholders, not to the employees who support and build the platform. And there are very few tech unions out there to protect people. But for Melissa, I'm very curious, in your opinion, what is the biggest or some of the biggest blunders that Elon has made since taking over Twitter?
Do we have a list? Right? She might have she might have it written down somewhere. It might be.
I'm looking for maybe the top.
That's right. I'll keep it to the top 2 or 3.
Okay.
So first of all, if you look at the tech landscape as it exists right now, we've seen layoffs are happening. There's a downshift in the economy.
Yeah. Yes, it
Meta
is overall.
Laid off 11. Meta has laid off 11,000 workers. We've got Amazon laying off people. We've got Microsoft laying off people. So it's probably were layoffs going to happen at Twitter regardless? Most likely. But there was no kind of managed transition.
Yeah.
At Twitter, there were, for instance, there were 3 of us data scientists working on political misinformation. I mean, there's lots of other people working. I'm just saying 3 data scientists. All 3 of us are now gone. What you do with the layoffs is you do a managed transition where you make sure subject areas are covered. Somebody else can pick this up with the knowledge, or somebody can get trained with new knowledge. What he's done is essentially taken a giant sword and cut us right down the middle without regard to job function. Not to mention the contractor workforce who did the grunt work, most of whom did the grunt work of reading through tweets. Which is just, awful work. You leave some of them with really tough PTSD. Those have been from 5,500 employees to 4,400 were cut. So the majority of them were cut. Many of them in the global South. So anywhere besides the U.S. has been left with almost no protections.
Wow.
And it's really, really, I'm terrified about what's going to happen.
Wow. Well, unfortunately, we're running low on time. I'm curious what you're up to now.
Right now, I'm desperately looking for work, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Me too.
You know it. I still teach data science and analytics nights and weekends for some coding stuff, but I'm just looking for a full-time job, and it's a scramble. The holidays are coming up. There's 100 or 1,000 more of us who are laid off in tech across the U.S. It is an absolute scramble. So that's what I'm doing.
And you didn't receive any severance either, did you?
Oh, that's
Not
another
as a
thing. That's
contract.
severance.
From the
No,
contract.
I think
that's
contractors usually
Not,
don't.
not as
Yeah,
a contract.
yeah,
Yeah.
contractors usually don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I
that
did
makes
get
it
a
even
nice
worse.
box of Christmas chocolates.
Well, that's
Very thoughtful.
well, Melissa. Well, I do want to thank you for joining us. This was an incredible conversation. You know,
Thank
Thank you.
I mean, we've been talking about Elon Musk for a while, and kind of to hear some of the background of, you know, what was going on, what you were seeing is really enlightening to all of us. So we definitely appreciate you coming on and sharing that and having the courage to do that. So
Happy to speak. Thank you
any,
for having me.
any final thoughts that you'd like to share, how people can reach you, maybe social media?
Yeah, listen, people have suggested I'm out to get Elon Musk. I'm not. I want him to succeed because I want this platform to succeed, and I think he can still turn it around.
Okay.
I'm on all the social medias, Melissa Ingle, M1NGLE74. If you can remember that, I'm one of the few Melissa Ingles.
We'll post it.
Anywhere. Feel free to search me out.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you again, Melissa, for joining us.
Thank
We
you
do
so
appreciate
much.
your
Good
time.
luck to you.
Good luck.
To you.
Thank you so
Good luck
much.
to you.
I really
All right,
appreciate it.
thank you so much. Melissa's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean,
And very insightful.
it's a lot to go through. I mean, I can't even imagine having been in that situation where you're just trying to figure out what's going to happen to your job. And, you know, I know as a contractor, you know, in a contractor for the federal government, we go through that a lot at the end of contracts. But generally, we just get picked back up, and it's pretty straightforward. But, you know, it's still challenging when you have someone come in and, you know, as a contractor, you're probably first to go.
Well, like I mentioned,
private sector versus public sector. There's a big
That's another
difference,
issue.
man.
Mm-hmm.
well, like I mentioned briefly earlier, you know, I was laid off from Sports Illustrated, and to hear someone say that in their layoff process they got a text. I mean, that just is just so despicable and disgusting.
That's
Like, I
low.
had to sit down with my supervisor. I got a ridiculous severance package because I'd been there for 18 and a half years. And I know I wasn't contract, but just because you're contract doesn't mean that you shouldn't be shown
Right.
grace. Like, at least have a
Right.
conversation with these people.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's that was awful. That was awful in my
Yeah,
opinion.
that's
Awful.
Yeah.
awful.